I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It should be really good. So, and welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills, brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin. Stop on by. We are a roastery, folks, so we roast our beans fresh here every day on site. Stop on by, get some coffee.
Some of the best coffee around. I got my cold pressed sugar-free turtle again, Joe. I'm loving it. I'm really liking it. Well, what are we here to talk about today? Episode 3 is Seminary.
Seminary.
For you people out there, Seminary, that's what we call it. It used to be a seminary. We could go into that a little bit more. But that's where we did our 2-week summer camp for the Wisconsin Badgers. And basically it was a seminary where priests went to
become priests.
Enter the priesthood.
Yep.
And it was a very old building.
Very old.
Sound structurally could probably take, hold up against a tornado.
Yes.
But yes, very old. No air conditioning.
No air conditioning. Believed to be haunted. And, some of the stories have gone around over the years that it is haunted. I never saw a ghost or anything, but definitely have some haunting memories there, Bill. I think it conjures up to anybody who was there and had the fantastic experience of going to seminary, holy name, playing football for Wisconsin. That sound, that name will conjure up some difficult memories, some positive ones, and probably a super happiness that you never have to go back.
I'm a little sick to my stomach right now just thinking about it. Thinking about those hot mornings with the dew on the grass and having a stretch and, just constant pain. And that's something we talk about, we joke about, but it's basically a 2-week long headache you go through. Every bump and bruise. Day one when you walk in, you're a finely tuned athlete, in shape, everything feels good. And right away, really quick, that goes downhill, those rough mornings. But to touch on the air conditioner. So my roommate, Chris Janik, who we talked about in earlier episodes, he had the genius idea to bring an air conditioner into seminary. And because I think our windows didn't open even in the room, he basically also brought a refrigerator box. We cut that out, put the air conditioner in it, pumped all the hot air into our bathroom, which we were no longer able to use for the next 2 weeks because we were just filling it full of hot air. We had to go use other people's bathrooms, brush your teeth, use the restroom, whatever. But we got by. We had a cool room for that.
Still pretty genius. Never thought of that. The windows did open, but there was a screen on there, and I had a box fan. And my roommate, one of the years, or first year, had allergies and did not want the fan on.
Do you remember who your roommate?
Yeah, it was Terry Dixon. And he did not want the fan on, and because he had allergies, and I was. If you want to make me unhappy, is make me sleep in my own sweat, and there's no air movement,
especially there because you have the pain. It's everything else on top of it.
Yes. It's one of those experiences that you remember forever because of the misery and pain it went through. So, Bill, for people who don't know what it was, it was our basically 2-week football camp before season, or it was actually before the season, where we went to a seminary. It's called Holy Hill. Their holy name. And we would go there, and we were surrounded by nobody but football players, coaches, trainers, and that was it. You had nowhere to go when you arrived. You handed in your keys, and you were not able to leave. So I think our first year was probably the most eye-opening experience that we've had. And then after a while, you get used to it, know what you're doing. But that first year was tough.
Oh, absolutely. We got thrown right into the fire there. And it's so bad, to Joe's point, at night, you could almost see like lights in the distance. And that's when a lot of guys that quit, that's when they quit. They quit at night, and they'd leave, and they'd have, I don't know, what was that, like a 2 to 4 mile hike?
Absolutely.
Just to get to civilization, to be able to use a gas station payphone, to be able to call somebody for a ride. Because we were truly off the grid out there. Go ahead.
And it was, like I said, our first year, they brought the freshmen in first, I think 4 days before the veterans came in. And those 4 days, I thought, if this is 2 weeks, I'm not going to make it.
Yep.
And I can tell you the funny stories is we've had people that absconded, never to be heard from again and never seen again. And
we don't even know if they made it to the gas station to make the phone call. Their bones could be somewhere in a farm field.
possibly
Between
being
Seminary and the gas
absolutely. So at night, the first day you walk in there, you get all your equipment, you get your shorts and all your Badger apparel, and it's super exciting. I mean, it's kind of a big deal because you're wearing issued gear, and you're looking the part.
Yep.
You've made it. You've done the commitment. For me, I did all the summer conditioning, so I have reached the point where I am where I need to be in the shape I need to be in order to perform. That's how I came in. And then the first 4 days, in the middle of the night, you would hear commotion in this old building, and it wasn't creaking from the windows, or it wasn't, the sounds of ghosts moaning. It was a commotion of people sliding open their windows, grabbing their issued gear that they received, throwing it off the second or third floor. Was it 3 floors or 2 floors?
It was 3, but
floors?
They were at least on the second floor that they're jumping out of windows, proceeding to leave.
Throwing their stuff out the window, jumping down, and you would see a couple people that would leave and never come back. And that was on the first day.
Yeah.
And it progressively increased in numbers. Now, some of these were scholarship athletes. Some of these were, potentially really good players.
Yeah.
But after the first 2 or 3 days, or first night, we never saw them again.
Absolutely.
No idea.
And I think that's a common misnomer too, where everybody today, we see all this stuff with stars, 4-star, 5-star guys. You don't know what they're worth until they get there. Just because they have a ranking coming out of high school, a lot of the guys on our teams had really high rankings. Some guys didn't have any rankings, and it's what you do once you get there. So yeah, a lot of guys, and I think a lot of people that were big fish in a small pond.
Yeah,
that's a culture shock when they get out there. Coaches are yelling at them. I always say, as close to similar to the military. Obviously, where we're playing a game, they're doing real world stuff where you could get killed. But the way we get coached, from the coaches down to the players, and everything we put our bodies through, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy. Some of the other stuff we wanted to bring up, just the common stuff that we talk about all the time, the weigh-ins. Having a weigh-in before you go to practice, having a weigh-in when you get done with practice. And it's not just about how much do you weigh or where's your weight supposed to be. That it's not like you're eating too much ice cream at night and get in trouble. They're concerned how much water you're losing during practice. Are you putting enough water back in your body after practice? We joke about cramps.
Oh, yes.
Cramps were an ongoing thing at camp. And it wasn't like, when I got to college, I couldn't believe how much water that we had out on the practice field.
Right.
Like water was a scarcity to me in high school. You barely saw it. Maybe on Friday nights, but most of us guys, you don't really come out of the game that much, so you don't have a chance to get water. But we're drinking fluids the way you should as an athlete, and you're still cramping nonstop.
That was I experienced. So on average, I would weigh in, and then after our long practices, I'd come back in and I would lose between 15 and 18 pounds of water weight.
Yep.
Not being able to drink that much water and not really understanding, there's no way. And we were doing 3 a day. It was not a 2 a day. Like, that's the thing that people don't understand. It was freaking 3 practices a day. So we're going to pause on that. Full body cramp. Can't drink 15 to 18 pounds of water or gallons of water, whatever it takes to rehydrate the machine here. And I remember the night to this day. And so I was laying in bed, and of course, no air conditioning because we didn't have one, Bill. We had a fan, and it was hot, and it was just miserable and muggy. And I developed a cramp in my right calf. So I sit out of bed and I grab a hold of my toes and I try to pull it out, and then I get a cramp in my left calf. So now I have two calves that are completely seized up, and I'm beside myself because I can't even take the pain. And then those cramps went up my body, into my quads, into my hamstrings, into my abdomen. I didn't have abs. I mean, they're there. They're under some like marshmallow fluff, but I do have abs. Yeah. And my entire body went into,
just like you're doing it. It's like that dinosaur pose. Like, there's nothing you can do.
And I just started yelling and screaming. And my roommate looks at me like, and he went down and said, "I'm having a stroke." And I couldn't even talk. All I could do was moan. And at which point in time, they brought up this wheelchair that looked like it came out of a psychiatric ward. Am I wrong?
Yes. No, you are 100% right with that. I remember that.
Like
picture.
right out of a 1940s mental hospital, because that's what I remember.
Strap your wrists in and everything.
And I got taken down the steps into the training room, and I am so beside myself. I'm in so much pain because my entire body is seized up. And at that point in time, they asked me, "Do I want a blanket?" And I'm like, "Why would I want a blanket? I'm hot." Well, they proceed to put an IV in me, several, and rather than letting the fluids just leak into my bloodstream in order for me to, relax my muscles and get the hydration that my body so desperately needs, we sit here and we squeeze the IV bag, baby. Yep. We squeeze that bag, and they're pouring the fluids into me, which I desperately need. But if you think about it, an IV bag is room temperature, and your body's 98.6 again, whatever. It's right around there. Don't quote me on that. And that room temperature, I started to shake uncontrollably because I was freezing. That was one of the worst experiences that I remember in seminary.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. I had the same exact deal happen to me. It happened right on the field. So we were leaving the field after. This was when we reduced down, and we're not gonna skip by us 3 days. Right after the story, we're telling you guys about 3 days. But it was once we got down to 2 days. And the morning practice was over. I'm walking, up the grass hill back to the inside. And similar to you, I think it went my quads cramped first, then my hamstrings. Then I went to bend over. Then it was my stomach. Then I had guys like carrying me in. And the next part of the story is identical to you. And then I have a question that I go, we got 2 degrees here from the University of Wisconsin. Why did it take me this long to think about this? So same as you, I'm getting the IV, they're squeezing in. They're like, would you like a blanket? They even go so far to go get my mouthpiece. And I'm like, what do I need my mouthpiece for? They go, because it's going to be cold. You're going to start chattering with your teeth. We don't want you to chip a tooth. With all this being said and all this work we went through, why can't we just heat the bags of IV? Wouldn't that solve, don't they have those little heaters that they keep it at 90 some degrees or whatever in there? Why are we going with 60-degree IVs, squeezing them into us?
I don't know. I think it was maybe to develop that toughness, possibly.
I hope that's one thing that's changed. It seems like everything else has changed. The locker room, the food, the training table, all that stuff. Hopefully we're not still squeezing cold IVs into people.
I often wondered the squeeze technique. I don't know if that's the way to go about it. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't pretend to be one on TV. I don't play, but
we stayed at a Holiday Inn from time to time, but
you're squeezing these fluids into your bloodstream at a high rate of speed, and it's not just one, because it took quite a few to.
I want to say it was 4 to 6 bags, just to get you back to even.
We realized that I have a problem retaining water. So then, after practices, I would also get to go and have IVs very frequently after practice, in between our 3-day practices, just so I can keep the motor cooled off and hydrated enough for me to be able to go out there and perform.
I don't get it one bit, but that absolutely cramps. And like you said, those, especially when you're taking a nap or you look over at your clock in the morning. What did they use air horns, or did they just bang on doors? I forget how they did wake up, but you roll over, you look, you're like, oh, I still got another hour to sleep. Then you go to roll and boom, something cramps. Just the absolute worst.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially those beds. I remember it was probably just some average bed that was probably 50 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
But God, did it feel like laying on a heavenly pillow.
Yes.
It just felt so good to rest your body, to stop like that at the end of the day.
All right. So why don't we talk about 3 days? Because
so
this is what really, I think, formed some of these bonds between us.
Oh, yeah.
Was going through this. I mean, honestly, you talk to people and they look at you in disbelief.
Yeah.
Because I had to ask you, correct me if I'm wrong. We did 3 days, right? Yep. You're 100%. So,
and I've had just some of the younger players we've gotten to know over the years. I've had these same conversations with a guy our age, and then a younger guy who played, well after we were done. They're like, no, you guys didn't have 3 days, you had 2. And we're like, no, let's take you back.
Yeah.
96 and 97, we did 3 days.
Yes.
And it was, just some of the things we talk about. Tape is so important for an athlete. You're taping your wrists, you're taping your ankles. And, it's not like high school where the tape's crazy valuable and how much tape is left. We're in college, Division I college. There's plenty of it. We didn't have time to get retaped from the first practice to the second practice. Talk about all this. Here's another thing. It's going to get a little gross. But when we talk about all that water weight we lose, Where does it go? Gravity just goes down. Your shoes are
socks
5-10 pounds each.
Yes.
Socks are done. Your tape's falling apart, but you don't have time
No.
because you're coming in, you're doing meetings, maybe having a meal, and then you're back on the field. Then how about while we're doing 3-a-days, we're also working out. So we're hitting on the field 3 times a day with practice.
Yep.
Oh, how about in between the second and third practice? Let's get a quick workout in, and we'll touch on some of the stuff. It was basic stuff, bench press, squat, deadlift, all that. But then we're doing neck exercises.
Yes.
Remember the green military towel that you drape? Somebody be laying on a bench, and you would drape it over their eyes and forehead, and you'd push down with the towel as it almost looks like you're trying to waterboard somebody without the water. You're just forcing their neck down.
Actually, you're probably sweating in their mouth. So at the same time, there's probably a hint of waterboarding going on there.
I'm sure.
Because I'm serious. Like after you are going through like in between second and third practice,
you're never
completely, you're never cold. You're never dry. So it's waterboarding basically, but with human perspiration.
It's great. And then some of us were luckier than others where you had Aaron Gibson pushing down on you in the workouts. Like wasn't like you had one of the skinny, weak girl linemen. I mean, you had somebody really put you through the ringer there. How about the meetings though? Meetings. Oh my Lord. Talking from that young age when you first get there as freshmen. I remember, so I was a D lineman, as we've mentioned. I was D line in 96. Well, the year we all redshirted, then I switched over to offense. When I was defense, I had Coach Lermo as my D-line coach. And man, he'd screw up. And I screwed up plenty because when I was in high school, we didn't really have an offense or a def. I played both ways in high school, but we didn't have anything really complicated. And once you got to that Division I level, it's like, holy shit, this is the real deal. Like, I didn't even realize defense had a playbook. Like we had nothing in high school on the defensive side of the ball. Offense, we had some pieces of paper. But so I'm screwing up. I used to say, I said I'm sorry once, which I was like, God, that's weird to say in a freaking football room. Like everyone's staring at me. And then JP goes one day, he's like, Ferrario, did you understand me? And I was so worked up and nervous. I go, yes, sir. He goes, don't ever say yes, sir to me again. You know what that means in the military? That means fuck you in the military. Don't yes, sir me. And I'm just like, what do you want me to say? Like, I just don't want to get yelled at anymore. But, and you're getting yelled at in meetings until like 9:30, quarter to 10. You know, I laugh how they're like, oh, there's a curfew. What are we going to do? Like the second you allow me to get back to my room, I'm probably chugging a water or Gatorade. I'm going right to sleep because that alarm clock's starting right over.
Icing.
Yes, ice.
So back to these meetings. Understand every snap is recorded. Was every drill recorded?
I think the drills were recorded too, and the snaps were recorded an end zone copy. So from behind the goalpost and then a sideline copy. So you could see your footwork, your spacing.
There was nowhere to hide. So
the big guy in the sky.
Yes, there was nowhere to hide. So you watched every snap in every drill every day. Yeah. So if you had an off practice,
you know it right away.
Oh,
and you're just dreading it.
Yep. Or in knowing that your drills, there's no slacking off in the drills because if you're not into it, they're going to see your output. So there was no hiding at all. Again, when you say very militaristic, that's what it was. And the meetings were, so your first practice, we were out on the field at 7 a.m.?
Probably around there.
Or on the field at 7 a.m. It's muggy. It was in August. It's got that dew on the grass because it was cooled off the night before, so it's wet. And immediately you're so sore that it hurts to stretch.
Yep. And you're sitting down in the cold, wet grass right off the bat to start the day off. You're already soaked.
Yep.
You know you're going to be soaked from sweat, but we just got out there. You're clean. Your tape is clean. And within a minute, you're sitting on the ground, you're laying on the ground, you're rolling around, you're stretching. Then let's go do it. Let's start running, start hitting, start doing drills. Then like 9-on-7, team, goal line. Yep. And you know, like even at the NFL level today, there's so many teams, and I don't know what the right or wrong thing to do with this is, but there's so many teams that avoid contact for the sake of avoiding injuries. We went good versus good. We're going to hit. We're going to do everything basically except for cut.
Right.
I think that was the agreed rule. Defense is going to tackle. We're going to block. We're just not going low on anybody.
Correct.
To try and keep everybody on their feet.
Yes.
How often does that happen? Rarely. You know, you're still. But we used to do goal line with Ron back. Here's another thing, too, about seminary. I walked into seminary, so I wasn't out there your first summer. You were out there. I think Dave and I came right before camp. And I walk in as a D lineman, stand about 6'2.5", 260. I walk in, and Ron Dayton happens to walk in beside me, who I didn't know at the time.
Right.
I had no clue how big a name he was or any of this. I was like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" He's like, "Good. My name's Ron." I'm like, "I'm Bill. Nice to meet you." I go, "What position you play?" And I'm looking at Ron. You know, how tall is Ron? Like, I don't know, 5'11". He was probably 260 or 270 that day when I met him. And I'm like, he's a D lineman. He's a three technique or nose guard. Right. I was like, "What position are you?" He's like, "Running back." I was like, "What?" Now, wait a second. Now, I came to college to play D line, and I want to be tackling running backs and sacking quarterbacks. And that's what a running back looks like. I was like, holy cow. He looked like a nose guard. Okay. I mean, but man, could he run? So, yeah, that was just crazy meeting him, seeing that size difference. Hey, Joe, what the heck does it mean when you say Cabin Coffee Altoona is a roastery? Are you making fun of the coffee or something?
Come on now, Bill. Sounds to me like you've had one too many shots to the head. It means we're a roastery. We buy our beans green from all over the world and roast right here on site. It's the freshest coffee you can get.
Is that why one place I used to go to tasted burnt and the other place tastes like brown flavored water?
That's exactly why, Bill. So stop on down to 2922 Meadowlark Lane. Cabin Coffee Altoona. Just remember, folks, everything's better at the cabin.
Here's another good one for you. Mrs. Hueber. Oh. Sorry, Mrs. Hueber, we got to throw you under the bus here.
Yes.
So the first time so we all met Mrs. Hueber on our visits, but the first time once seminary started that we saw her face to face, she came in during a lunch, walked by a table where this is after our redshirt year, all of us old linemen are freshmen, walks by the table and goes, "How you motherfuckers doing?" And we looked at her shocked. We're like, "What did she just say?" And she goes, "Oh, her husband, Jim Hueber, our online coach." She's like, "Oh, I figure out after all this time you've been spending with Jim, that's the only term you guys answer to." Yes. And it probably was. And there's another thing too at seminary. So one, these coaches, all college coaches, they yell so loud, it could be heard everywhere. So whether O-line has a bad day, D-line, linebackers, whoever it is, you could hear it through the walls. You know exactly who's getting yelled at. You feel for them. Yep. You're happy that if it's a defensive room, I'm happy it's on defense, not offense, because that means I at least halfway did my job. But then I think it was that year, that freshman year, our second year at seminary, when they were doing the construction. We're not going to tell the whole story. No, because there are maybe 2 or 3 stories that cannot be told on the podcast. This one, maybe we'll have to figure out some behind the scenes things for down the road. But without telling the story, we got yelled at, we got reprimanded. We got sort of cut down very harshly. And the D linemen, they heard every word of it because all it was a piece of plastic at that time because they were doing construction. So there was no wall. They had that like just a piece of plastic, basically.
Almost like painter's plastic that separated the walls, and you could hear every
they heard
meeting
it, they saw it. There was hand gestures made of us, and still this day, for people that played, you know what speech it was. It was a very impactful speech, and it's stuck with us ever since.
And for some of us, it's a very prestigious club that we are a part of, and it's been 30 years, and it's still brought up that the members of that club, Bill. So, but I think we don't need to touch on any more of that.
I think we'll let that go now.
Yeah,
we'll put that dog to sleep. Back to the seminary being haunted. I do agree it's haunted. I do believe I saw a ghost one time.
Okay.
You know, when you're coming back in at night, I think it was like, 2 times while we were there, we had a later curfew where we got the afternoon practice knocked off. We could go to dinner or a movie or something. And when you came back, there was always one room at the top center of the seminary that was lit up. It looked like there was a person in it. I could never find that room. Never found a room once I got inside that had a light on, let alone a person.
Bill, that was where I was. They were putting IVs in me.
You're just watching over us, making sure everybody got back safe and sound.
No, it wasn't me.
You would have been up there shaking.
Trying to get your attention. And you just ignored me. That's all you did.
Oh, here's another thing. What was the other thing we did at every day at seminary? What's the first thing you do when you come down the steps before you go into the cafeteria? Who do we have to visit? Dawn the Pill Girl.
Dawn the Pill Girl.
Dawn the Pill Girl she was a trainer in training. So like she was also a student. But yes, she'd give us a little plastic, like
2 ounce,
two ounce cup.
like a portion cup.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what it was. 2 ounce portion cup that you would get tartar sauce in.
I don't know portions that often, but
yeah, like
I'm copying
for you Wisconsin people, when you go to a fish fry, and your tartar sauce comes in a portion cup. So there you go. And we have portion cups at Cabin Coffee. That's how I know the name of it, Bill. So there you
makes
go.
sense. But yeah, so in this portion cup, no two cups are alike.
Nope.
Don't know what the pills were.
No idea.
Never. You got to think we were 17, 18, 19 years old when we came into college. Nobody ever signed anything saying you were okay in taking these. Our parents knew nothing about it. And I'm not by any means trying to assume something negative, because I'm sure people are thinking something bad.
No.
It was a lot, I'm sure, protein, vitamins, minerals, all the good stuff, but just that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And that, like how we talk about how sometimes you look and you're like, you have 2 greens, I got a blue,
Yeah.
I don't have a blue, but I got this.
Never understood like the sequence of colors. I think that was the issue. And again, I fully believe that these pills were to help with our vitamin supplement because of how much we were losing. Like, don't question that it was anything illegal in there.
Correct.
But they were kind of catered to you in what you were needing. So I would walk up to Bill. I'm like, do you have a purple one? You have 2 purple ones. Do you have the toxic green one? I don't have the toxic green one. And you should get a little more. Like, how many pills do you have? And we count them, and they'd be the same amount of pills, just in a different variety. Yeah. And I wish I could say that they were flavored like the purple was purple, but it wasn't. It was just, it just
would have been more exciting if they were Flintstone pills.
I think
chewables.
Yeah.
Oh, I still remember those.
Or it could have. I mean, if they could find a way to put what's the fluid that was pumped into us when we were sick?
IV.
No, it was the little kids drink that.
Pedialyte.
Pedialyte. Maybe it was Pedialyte.
They could have grabbed the Pedialyte from the back. That's always there in the training room. The Pedialyte. Oh Lord, what was I just going to say before you said Pedialyte? I just lost it for a second.
Pedialyte. Okay, and that's going to be a part of the story because no matter what happened, no matter what injury you sustained, no matter how you were feeling, everything could be completely just put at ease with some Pedialyte and some naproxen. And
ice and stim.
Ice and stim.
Ice, stim, Pedialyte, naproxen. That solves anything under the sun. Everything. That'll fix anybody. All right, here's one more thing that's always been a pet peeve of mine with Seminary was the hills. And listen, we all put our work in. We knew what our job was when it came to football. You're not going to complain. You're not going to bitch. You got to do it. But man, they hosed us on certain days where they're like, go all the way down to the lowest field, O-lineman all the way on that side. Yeah. Then we're going to do a team drill 2 fields up all the way over on the other side.
Uphill.
Come on.
And again, offensive linemen, everything we do is hitting.
Yes.
Everything we do is full contact.
Yeah.
So we're in a fist fight down in field number 3, the lowest one. And the quarterbacks were just running the receivers are doing routes. The quarterbacks are doing their drills. They look fresh as hell.
Yep.
We come up, we're battered and we're bloody, and we have to run 3 fields uphill to get where on the field that they're practicing on.
Yeah. And the defense is just standing there watching us run over, dying. Let's chat on that for a second. That we brought up Seminary defense 9-on-7. When we did 9-on-7, that's our inside run period. And listen, we're the University of Wisconsin. It's not like we had that much. We were running obviously it's a run only period.
Absolutely.
Our basic runs were zone, inside, outside zone, power, counter. That's basically what you're doing in 9-on-7. Mm-hmm. Our defense, every single practice would have the script of what plays we're running, and they know the exact order.
Absolutely.
Why can't we didn't get anything. I mean, it's just like, okay, they get to know the play. They get to know that I'm pulling around the corner. They get to get ready for that hit. Yep. Yeah, we had nothing. And that upset me.
And then as we don't produce yards or do they know where the ball's going and they know when the snap count is, and then they blast through and hit our running back. And then we get called out in film for not doing our job.
Yep.
The element of surprise we never had.
Yep. They knew the snap count. They knew what play we were running.
And they knew which way it was going.
Yeah. I look at Gadorsey being like, watch the power over here. You think?
Yeah.
That's what it said on your call sheet. You just looked at it.
That's what your coach told you. It's going to be a power.
Yeah.
It's going to be a power to the left. So you knew the play defense. And just saying.
Or even that no blitzing was supposed to be a 9-on-7, and those linebackers cheating up, doing like that Mickey Mouse blitz and all that stuff. It's obviously always OWUA, overworked, underappreciated.
Absolutely.
That's offensive lineman.
And that's okay.
In a nutshell.
That's kind of how we got where we are kind of in life right now. So I'll take it. Trying to think of anything else from seminary. You could probably mention the antifreeze green pool. I mean,
the pool was. There's one other, and of course you got to bring that. There's another story that we know that there's people out there that know that is number 2 that can't be discussed on the show. But just talking about the pool, that was glorious on those days that we got done with practice, and they're like, you could jump in the pool.
Yep.
I think you take your cleats off and that's it, and you're getting in.
It was.
There were days
an indoor pool.
Doing the tape.
It was an indoor pool. It wasn't a crystal clear blue pool. It wasn't a pool where you would want to bring your family to. It was almost an antifreeze green color, not as bright. The bottom was extremely slippery.
I'd say it had probably been easily a minimum of 10 years before chemicals saw that water.
Yeah, all that.
I don't think so. I don't think they were treating that pool.
No.
I don't think it was safe for us to get in at all. But like I said, it felt like the best of everything.
Absolutely.
Like, we had a good practice, summed it up, jump in the pool and just float for a minute.
And especially with all the injuries, because we hit all the time, it seemed like everything, even though I worked out in the summer before, like and was there all summer, you just could not condition your body for the amount of impact. And I played football since I was in the 8th grade. I've gone through 2-a-days in high school. This was a different level of soreness, and it was a different level of headache that I've never experienced before.
The headache, and I think the test that one, I'll attest right off the bat for myself. Obviously, people have seen my face and my nose that I've broken my nose a couple times over the years. We definitely hit too much back then with our head, with terms of concussions. Like, think about those, whether it's 9-on-7 or doing goal line live. I mean, I looked at Donnell Thompson and Chris Gadorsey and was like, they were the root of 90% of my headaches throughout college, because those two guys had steel inside their heads, and they would just run downhill at you, and you're just butting heads right there nonstop. But yeah, the other thing with injuries, obviously, you've had some serious injuries when it comes to your knees, but those are the ones that are going to take you out of practice, take you out for a season. Right. All the other ones that you're talking about are the little things that we just have to deal with. I mean, I'd rather a broken bone than a ripped fingernail. Or you dislocate a finger, and what do every single play? We're throwing our hands right into somebody's chest. So it's like you dislocate a finger, or you remember getting it where the thumb stays down and your thumb didn't go up, and you jam that in there, and there's nothing you could do. And
it's one of those things where in this time of the season, you're still battling for position, and the last thing you want to do is let somebody behind you take your spot, because the guy behind you wants your spot too. Even though you're friends, you're offensive lineman, you hang out together, you do that.
Absolutely.
Like, there's still somebody who's trying to take your spot. So you're not going to let one of these small injuries, like a broken thumb that you don't tell about, or when you break your hand in the second game of the season, or when you have cracked ribs and you just continue to play because you are dedicated to the guys around you and to the sport. We
are going to have to. I know we've talked about, Joe and I have talked about, like, our episode list, like what episodes we want to come out next. One of the future ones, and I don't know if you saw it, that I put out there, this isn't going to be right away, but at some point we're going to talk about injuries. I don't know if we put on the TV back here like 2 silhouettes, like when you go to the doctor's office where you circle where it hurts, like that. Maybe we'll do the pens with the red, the green, the blue, and we'll just go through both of us, and we'll either start with our toes and work up to our head, or vice versa. But we'll go through, we'll list every single injury, talk about it, talk about how it healed. Absolutely. I mean, but yeah, we had some crazy, knock on wood for me, I didn't have anything too severe, but but tore a quad muscle right before the NFL combines. And basically the only other one that risked me coming out of a game was, obviously, sprained ankle is something that, just like you said, you sprain your ankle, you still gotta
just tape it up,
tape it tighter,
extra tighter.
Yeah, that's it. You're still playing. You're not sitting out a week or two.
No,
you're not icing it. You're not like you are doing all that stuff after practice.
You're having your Pedialyte. You're having your Naprosyn.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're doing the stim,
sparking in the morning to get ready. But yeah, those are the things that it's just part of the game. You got to deal with it.
And then along those same lines is not ever wanting people to know that you're hurt.
Oh yeah.
Like you kept that such top secret, unless it was something where it was so evident.
Yeah.
But do you remember sneaking ice?
Oh, absolutely.
So that no one would know.
Yeah. Because we never want to get written up for that stuff. I don't want you writing down in that book that my shoulder hurts or a stinger.
Okay. Nobody. I don't think anybody knows what a stinger is, Bill. I sat out of the Outback Bowl against Georgia because I had nerve damage.
Yeah.
I mean, in my right arm. Like I couldn't lift it above my waist. Yep. So if you want to explain what a stinger is, that would be phenomenal.
For the audience, a stinger is, and I'm assuming this, obviously, the non-medical explanation, it's when you're hitting with your neck and your neck gets in a inappropriate position, I guess is the best way to say it. You get a lightning bolt that goes from behind your ear down to the tips of your fingers, and then it's sort of like when that lightning bolt shuts off, you lose all power. And you got a swinging noodle at your side, and 9 times out of 10, it'll come back within a minute. You shake it out, you'll start getting feeling back. It happens during a game, happens during a series that you're driving down the field. You might get a stinger, and you might go the next play and hoping it's my arm, and so I could my. But then there's guys like you where you got it and it longer. It didn't come back. Or it took a lot longer.
Took a lot longer to come back. And I didn't even know. I remember having the stinger, but I don't remember. Like after it came back, I'm like, okay, it's good. And it was so bizarre. The only time I realized it is I was in the weight room with JD and I'm bench pressing, and I'm right-handed, and it was my right arm, and I'm doing bench press, and I can't lift the bar. I had no pressure, no force in my right arm at all.
Yeah.
And we didn't know what it was. So then I had to go to University Hospital, and then they were poking me with needles trying to find out. And then ultimately it was a stinger. If you mention the word stinger, I think to a lot of the doctors today, I don't know if they know what a stinger is, but it was common vernacular for us.
Yes.
It's a stinger. And they're like, oh yeah, he has a stinger. Like, and kind of like getting your bell rung.
Make sure you got ice and stim it tomorrow after the shakeout deal. Yeah.
That and getting your bell rung. Apparently now, like you got your bell rung. And again, it was one of those things where, you saw stars. In some cases, you were knocked out on the field. You got your bell rung, but you got back up and you kept on going because that was the nature of the game.
Well, and that's the other thing too. And once again, I think we played at a time where safety was out the window. Nobody cared about safety. No. And anybody our age or older remembers the top 10 hits on ESPN, where like we used to thrive watching guys get knocked out. Like that's what football was to us. Where today, I think there is still a little bit too much of a concern for safety, where I think that pendulum has to come back down and settle in the middle. But to your point, when we were playing, like today, somebody saying they got their bell rung, that's a full-blown concussion. You're going to concussion protocol. For us, getting your bell rung, that's just like, oh, I got dinged up a little. Let's keep going. It's until you're snoring or unconscious, then it's like, oh, maybe we need to take a look at this one. But seeing stars, you keep playing. Get your bell rung, you keep playing. If you only lose consciousness for a second, but you're not on the ground, you keep playing.
Absolutely. Like, I don't. And I'm not trying to promote how tough we were and how awesome it was. Just the nature of the game then, and we didn't have concussion protocols, and it was. And you never wanted to have that stigmata. You never ever wanted to ever let the guys down, and you were not going to be the guy. So you played through the stuff because you had to, and that's literally what it is.
Hell, John Favre played. What was it? Was it our senior year, or it had to be our senior year with a broken vertebrae? He didn't even know it until after a season, or he knew it because he was one of those guys. I always felt bad for those. Knock on wood, I didn't have back issues when we were playing. My back waited till after I was done to go sideways. But like Favs was the guy, he used to lay down when the offense was on the field at Camp Randall. He used to like lay on the side of the field to like loosen his back up. Then when the season ended, and I don't know if coach knew about it or they found out afterwards, he went and got x-rays, but he had like I think 2 or 3 fractures in his vertebrae.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a broken back.
Yeah.
And he's out there, captain, putting his head, sticking it in there, just going to town, doing what he's got to do. I mean, but yeah, to your point, just like the height and the injuries, you didn't want to talk about.
No.
You wanted to be that tough guy that was never going to let somebody down.
Absolutely.
You want your teammates and your coaches to know, like, if you get called on, I'm going to do the job.
And I mean, as far as being roommates, you would know, or I would know, like, hey, like, I can barely walk. Yep, got it. What do you need? But that was kept always on the down low.
Yeah.
And going into the training room after hours to steal ice and to steal heating pads because you didn't want anybody to know that was a common thing. But that's what we had to do, and that's what we want to do. And I'm not promoting that. Oh, back when we played, it was so much tougher. What I am saying is it's better now because it's safer. I agree with that, but football is a violent sport, and it's never not going to be a violent sport. We played football because it was a violent sport. Bill, I enjoyed the violence. Did you enjoy the violence?
100%.
I love the violence.
Yep.
So that's why we played the game to begin with. And yes, there was a time and a place for it, and you turned it off when you were off the field, and you laid it out there when you're on the field. But it was a violent sport, and we played it because of that. It was. But I'm not downplaying that safety is huge. I'm super happy that there is a concussion protocol right now, because I think probably in our latter years here, Bill, we've probably experienced a little bit of some of those things.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like I brought up before, and this could probably be in the episode when we talk injuries, but I think it's, like I had a different number right when I got done playing compared to what number I would say today based off concussions. And when we go into that, and I'm sure we'll have an episode strictly on that, we'll talk more about it, where to our point from earlier, those little things like your bell rung, seeing stars, all of that, we didn't even count those as numbers.
No.
I mean, if you had a ballpark, how many times you saw stars? I don't even know where to begin. So to us, it was like, no, that's so minor. Like, that's not like mine. Because my number was either, I think it was 2 in my head. I said 2 severe and 5 or 6 slight concussions is what I would have said I had. After I met with a doctor, he wanted me to speak at this high school sort of symposium about sports and safety. And they asked me what my number was, and I was done playing, so I was fine sharing it. And that's what I said. I go 2 and 5. And I look on the board and I see all these highlights of getting your bell rung, seeing stars, loss of consciousness, headaches that last more than 2 days. And I go, hey, what are all those terms up there? And he goes, every term is a symptom of a concussion. And I go, wait a second. You're telling me if I saw stars, you're going to chalk that up as a concussion? He goes, might be the slight of slight concussions, but that's a concussion. That's why you saw stars. I was like, holy cow, I have no clue what my number is.
I don't think you could put a number on it, Bill, because you even think about talking about seminary now. We're doing 3-a-day practices for 1.5 to 2 hours a session, correct?
Correct.
And you're hitting on every play because we're not doing half pack. We're not doing just helmets only. It's full pack every day. Every day is contact. Just look at your time. And I've been playing football since I was in the 8th grade. It's similar to you. Like, I can't put a number on how many times I've seen stars. Or I've even said, I got my bell rung. Don't quite know where you are. Can't quite kind of know what the idea, like, I'm in the game, but don't know. Like, there's film of me in high school where I got my bell rung and we fumbled the ball, and I walked over to the defense, and I'm ready to get in my thing, and I'm asking them to call the play, and they're like, "You get the field," because I thought we were still on offense. I mean, I can remember several those periods where you don't know where you are or who you are, but you kind of shake it off and come to and go and do your job.
100% agree. 100% agree. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode for Seminary. Also, just as a reminder, if you guys have questions, specific questions, feel free to hit us up on the email or any of the social media sites at 217 South Mills. And stay tuned for the next episode. We're looking to be dropping about an episode a week. We're still doing fine details with what day of the week that's going to come out, so we can try to have a little consistency there. But we appreciate you listening.
And we also want to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee, Altoona, Wisconsin, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin. Stop on by, grab your favorite coffee, and come and say hi.
Good seeing
you. Have a good one,
guys.
folks.
Thank you for listening to Joe and I today. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. If you like what you heard, please give 217 South Mills a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go tell your friends about us. Like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
I'd like to thank Cabin Coffee Altoona for sponsoring us. Everything is always better at the cabin. See you next time. And remember, folks, Red has to run.